Eduard Kubke was born on a farm in Poland on December 3rd, 1927. He was the third child of Sigismund and Matilda Kubke. Eddie was good-natured, he loved to fix things, and he liked riding his bike. He particularly liked riding his bike in front of the house where Linda Liebrance lived. His bike would often break down there, and he would spend considerable time and effort getting it up and running again. Maybe this is where fixing things and love became melded inside of his heart. Ed and Linda were separated during the war, and then Ed immigrated to Canada in 1952, substantially increasing the distance between them. He always remembered Linda and wrote to her from his new home in Canada and asked her to marry him. She said yes, flew to Canada, and they got married in 1957. Ed then spent much of his 50 years of married life showing her his love by tinkering in the garage and fixing things. Opa particularly loved fixing Volkswagens. He worked at Jimmy's garage in Hannah for a while in 1953 and learned how to repair them. He loved that the engines were in the back and that they weren't complicated. His first car was a Volkswagen Beetle that he and his brother Bernard bought together, and Ed almost always had a refurbished Volkswagen in his automobile repertoire, and he had a diesel Golf in later life. Ed liked rescuing and redeeming discarded items too. And this part of him grew tremendously in 1958 when Ed started work at the City of Calgary's sanitation department. He started by doing garbage pickups in residential areas and then moved to business collection. Before he retired, he was driving a Kensworth. Throughout his career, Ed brought a steady stream of used furniture, tools, toys, and knickknacks home from his work, much to Linda's dismay. He quickly learned, though, how to make his passion financially viable and was called Copper Eddie by the guys at work because he would take home discarded wire, peel off the plastic coating, and sell the copper. Ed's work really paid off when Old Dutch started the show Kids Bids. Old Dutch potato chip bags and box tops could be saved and used to bid on items. Ed collected thousands of bags and got toys, bicycles, and even a full-sized playhouse for his 3 girls. When Ed retired, he stayed true to his inner recycling self. When he went golfing, he would have more fun finding lost golf balls than hitting a good shot. And when he went for a walk, he would always pick up empty cans that were left on the side of the road. Beer cans gave him special joy because they were worth double. Ed liked building things as well as fixing them. He bought a lot in Ross Carrick in 1960 and spent his evenings and weekends building a house. When it was late and Ed hadn't shown up for supper, Linda would take a bus to the house being built and find her exhausted husband asleep on the floor. When he and Linda bought a lot at Shuswap, Ed built a cabin there, a shed, and many additions over the years. Once the houses were built, though, Ed spent a good amount of time relaxing in them. He had the gift of being able to fall asleep anywhere and anytime, a skill he was able to retain his whole life. He loved lying down on the couch and watching Stampede Wrestling on Saturdays. His daughters would often curl up in the crook of his legs, but if they got too disruptive, their dad could efficiently dispel them with the aid of a little intestinal gas, another gift that served him well throughout his life. Ed loved music as well as TV, and every Saturday morning, without fail, he would record German waltzes and polkas that were part of Vic LaVica's radio program. Ed initially recorded the music on a huge reel-to-reel recorder and eventually moved to cassette tapes. Ed was easygoing, and he will be probably remembered most for his ability to make a joke in any situation, and in 3 languages. Ed spoke German, Polish, and English, and he particularly loved making fun of the English language, asking for a Senemovich for lunch, and saying, "Let's went," when he wanted to go someplace. It was brilliant. His family had to get ready so quickly that they were in the past tense before even getting into the car. He loved singing songs, and he made his own lyrics when he forgot the original ones. Bernie remembers Ed chopping wood and singing, "We had joy, we had fun, we had sit," or a word that rhymes with it. Ed's reputation for joking around sometimes gave the impression that he could easily blow things off, but in truth, Ed had a very kind, soft heart. Evelyn remembers waking up the morning of her 13th birthday and finding a new 3-speed bike in the middle of her bedroom. Ed had bought the bike from Consumers Distributing the day before, hid it in the garage, and then waited for Evelyn to fall asleep so he could bring it into her room and surprise her. However, when he opened the box the evening before her birthday, he discovered that the bike had to be assembled. He spent most of the night putting it together so that the bike would be the first thing Evelyn saw in the morning. Ed's heart got even softer as he got older. He became a champion for plants while shopping with Rita for bedding plants for her garden. When Rita put the flowers in the shopping cart in a way he didn't like, Ed would take them out, rearrange them, and pet them gently, calling Rita out as a plant meanie. He wouldn't let her put the plants in the truck to take home because she wouldn't do it right, so he did it. That was his job every year, and he was proud of his role as plant protector. Linda's death in 2006 was really hard on Edward and was a blow to his heart from which he never recovered. Ed mourned the fact that his wife died not knowing how very much he appreciated and loved her, and this regret changed how he dealt with his daughters going forward. For the last 15 years of his life, he would often tell them that he loved them and always thanked them for their visits and phone calls. Rita would visit Ed on Saturdays and Rose on Sundays. At first, Rose, Aiden, and Ed would go for walks and go to the playground every weekend, even during the winter. When this became too much for Ed, the visits moved to McDonald's. He always ordered a coffee, and after his first sip, he would say, "Ay, ay, ay, this coffee is on fire. Better get some ice," of living life to the full. When Ed would build a fire, it wouldn't be an ordinary one. No, it would be visible for miles around. He scoffed at the small metal grills that housed a square-foot flame, and instead created an inferno of his own liking. One year he used a chain and the trailer hitch on his car to loosen a giant tree stump that he placed over top of the tiny grill. He had a nice-sized bonfire going until the forest ranger drove by. The ranger made Ed and his brother Bernard pull the stump off, but it wasn't too long before the stump somehow managed to hop right back onto that grill and burn just like it had before. Ed liked to keep busy, and he played cards when he was with others and solitaire when he was alone. When Opa moved into assisted living, he had no time to bring out his deck of cards. Instead, he enthusiastically participated in all the social activities. Exercising in the mornings, Wednesday excursions to co-op, Thursday beer nights, and weekly ballroom dancing, where Ed was a particular favorite with the ladies. They would line up to dance with him. Ed was the only resident at Monterey Place who was completely mobile, and he took the stairs several times a day. Ed loved new experiences and visited tons of exciting places. When the kids were around, Ed's family and Bernard's family vacationed together, camping in North Ghost, the Okanagan, Gull Lake, and even Yellowstone National Park. Later in life, he went with Rita to Mexico, Hawaii, Alaska, Las Vegas, and they took a Baltic cruise of Europe. Ed participated in many tours and visited several churches and museums, but he enjoyed the rest and refreshment stops the most. He also liked giving his daughters a good scare from time to time. He did have a tendency to wander away when his daughters weren't looking, and he could move deceptively fast. When his frantic, near-heart failure daughters found him, he'd be calm and serene, saying, "I always knew you'd find me, so I never had to worry." Ed's love of life inspired us, and his kind heart blessed us. Thank you, Eduard Kubke, for surviving the war, for coming to Canada, and for building a home and a family here. Thank you most of all for making life a lot more fun before you went.